Welcome to Spiritual Studies Session 55. This session is covering a swath of obscure, dark goddesses across mythic and religious traditions. The arc of this session starts with the obscure and moves towards the more relatable, more translatable. This is a collaborative religious topic of, or I should say, hinting toward the divine feminine, the sacred feminine, but an emphasis on the dark, as is a religious trope of pantheons across the world. The powerful Great Mother, the destructive Mother. We begin our conversation, again, I hedge, with the most obscure, previously mentioned in the course when covering Orphism, AnonK. This AnonK translates to inevitability and compulsion, and participates in the Orphic creation story, entwining with Kronos being unaging time, taking the form of two serpents serpentining around the Orphic egg, time and inevitability. That this force, AnonK, incorporeal, would have her arms extending throughout the universe and touching its extremities, quote. In other creation stories, AnonK isn't mentioned. And in the what I want to say is, as we'll be discussing, there is a lot of drift between what is Nyx and what is AnonK. Nyx would be taken in by the more classical stories of Greece, which again are not solid. They are also a moving tale. So contradictions of who births what and what means what is dependent on what story you are reading. In this particular Orphic rhapsody, it is AnonK, Kronos, and the thesis, the idea, the time, and the compulsion, bringing forth Phanes. That these early parts of the story were not as popular to some because they are beyond human comprehension, expressibility, not so acceptable. But the curiosity of this early primordial history is the tale of ether or aether and chaos, the chasm, which seemingly all religious creation stories begin with, the chasm or the chaos. And in this rhapsody, we're talking about this effort of Kronos and AnonK separating the Orphic egg, separating the ether, the upper air, from the chaos, the lower air. So it was a kind of sifting that took place with the Orphic egg that separated the upper from the lower. The aether, of course, being that air of which the gods breathe. From this heavier sediment, let's just put it that way, that moves down, would become the dirt, the heaviness that would congeal in Gi, or in Gaia. That Gaia came about from the gestation of the chaos. Curious, huh? and that with the revolution of the sky and stars in the aether, everything up there will be driven round by a serpentine wind, that of Kronos and AnonK. And just pay attention here too, because you're saying two entwining serpents. The DNA, the very structure of DNA. If we look at the Aeschylus, we have a dialogue that mentions AnonK. Quote, I, being Prometheus, must bear my allotted doom to be chained to a mountain as lightly as I can, knowing that the might of AnonK permits no resistance. If you are reading any Greek classics, ancient Greek classics, there is a vehement respect for that of which is fated. Nothing can go against necessity, AnonK, that of which is ordained. Another quote, not in this way is Mora, fate, who brings all to fulfillment destined to complete this course. Only when I have bent by pangs and tortures infinite am I to escape my bondage. Skill is weaker by far than AnonK. Hamming in the point. That of which rules beyond all circumstance and power to mortals and gods. Because hear this out. Here's the dialogue. Who then is the helmsman of AnonK? Prometheus responds, the three-shaped Mora, Tremora, the Morai, the fates, and mindful, Minos, the Minosynth, the memory, and the Uris, the Uranus, meaning the Furies. So from AnonK comes the fates, comes memory, and comes fury. You'll want to stick on to that, because we'll see this theme as we go through these other goddesses. The chorus responds, can it be that Zeus has less power than they do? And Prometheus says, yes, in that even he cannot escape what is foretold. In contrast, take a look over at Odin. Odin is trying to escape the fate of Ragnarok because of how he came to power. And in the same way, we see that Zeus cannot escape what is foretold. And there is a hint in later dialogue that Zeus will come to an end. So, for who is the knower at the beginning of time, inevitability, knowing how it will all spell, birth's fate, the Morai, the three fates, past, present, and future, is holding all manner of the mnemos, memory, knowing all, and procures, births, the Furies, those things of which that enforce the fate. And if we look over at Plato in the Republic, he quotes that the Morai are daughters of AnonK. Lachesis singing the things that were, Clotho the things that are, and Anthropos the things that are to be, the past, present, and future. And Lachesis is the maiden daughter of AnonK, the one seemingly held more cherished. And remember, she is the past, Lachesis, the past, memory, held most dearly by necessity. All the things that will be point back to what has been. And there is a fragment that would seem to hint that back when there was a cult to AnonK. And when a depiction has been found, which again, she is a more obscure goddess, she is wielding a torch through the darkness and is a winged figure. So, let's talk about Nyx now. Nyx is within the greater fold of the Greek canon, of the Greek storytelling, not just the Orphic, and is believed to have given rise to the universe, including the earth. So, again, a goddess that was prior to all that is. Now, Nyx was a fearful goddess, and that Zeus would not dare to cross Nyx. He would back down. And as the story generally is, right, Zeus is the biggest of big boys. But yet, if it came to crossing Nyx, he would back down. So she is not just ruling the night, she is the night. And while many fearful things come out of the night, there is also the comfort of the night, the quiet, the solemn. And while Nyx hooks up with Erebus, the darkness, she seems to continually get more of the reference. In Erebus, even if you read if you read the Odyssey, you do have these coined gods that are mentioned quite a bit, quite a bit of Poseidon, quite a bit of Zeus, quite, semi-divine Circe. But there's also reference to Oedipus, but nobody quite pays attention to that one. Anyhow, Nyx tends to get more of the focus here. That Erebus and Nyx would drive the chariot across Uranus, across the sky, and that their children was day and ether. So both the day, the light, and the brightness, ether, would be the children of night and darkness, which is quite the cosmogenic thing to wrap your head around. And that they, day and brightness, Hemera and Aether, would be the first to show Uranus, the sky, and the surface of Gaia, of Gi. But what most people know is the many dark things that were birthed from Nyx. This being Thanatos, death, the twin brothers Hypnos, Eris, strife, Geras, old age, Moros, doom, nemesis, retribution, and pay attention to that one, retribution. That one will come up quite a bit. But also the Onerai, or the Onoroi, the gods of dreams, Morpheus, Phantastos. So, while there's all this dark doom and gloom, there's also the dreams, which is of great reverence and of great seer fascination. Far off, and I've mentioned Hecate, I'm not giving her a lot of talk in this talk, because there is the case of taking the Greek concept Heka and making it an homage through Hecate, more as an implant into Greek storytelling. So there is that close link between Nyx and Hecate, being that the most powerful of spells would be done under the night. And if you are a practitioner, then the night is where you would be doing it. So that mutuality between women and magic, that dark magic, the dark magician, the Wiccans, and yada yada, has a sort of nod back to this Nyx. And Nyx would trade the post of the day with Hemera of the night. So they both were told by Hesed to be living at the edge of the world in a home, but they would never stay in the home together. When one would come in, the other would go out, and the only time they would be near each other is at twilight. So you can see that this is a very mixed bag. It is not a pure dark essence by any means. It is a very powerful essence. And it ties in dreams, it ties in retribution, it ties in death, it ties in doom and old age. And mind you, let us take a reference to the crone. The crone has everything to do with death, has everything to do with old age, but has the wisdom to initiate all those that are youthful. And in the realm of dreams is the realm of great wisdoms, of prophecy. And that this is all so great and all so tied with fate that even the most powerful would not dare to cross it. So yes, evils and miseries, but also benevolence. So let's hop over now. A brief mention of Durga in Hinduism, or known as Devi, or Shakti, the protective mother. And while she is a protective mother, she is also riding a lion with her many arms, bearing battle against the forces of evil in the world. And amongst her many incarnations, her avatars, her many, our most notable one is Kali. So, before going there, the mention here, Durga, a protective mother who's battling the forces of evil, the retribution, keeping things right, keeping things on their course. And as is said, and as is very important in Hinduism, is Dharma. Doing what you are here to do, doing what you are aligned to do. So to defend this from going off the rails, the protective mother would become a weapon. And this is certainly very true in Kali. She has these two dead heads for earrings. She has a necklace of skulls and a girdle of human hands, her tongue waggling out of her mouth, these red eyes, and she's covered in blood. And from an outsider to see such a depiction, it's like, what is going on here? And she has this black complexion. And this black complexion, I say, might we just nod at Nyx here a little bit? It's said to symbolize her transcendental nature, all-embracing. Just as all colors disappear in black, so all names and forms disappear in her. And the very essence of the night, to look up and to see the dark or the night or the blackness, this is all things. To think that in our sensory perception, that if we cannot compute the stimulus of which we are receiving, that the default setting is that it just goes black. Her nudity is also a part of this symbolism. This transcendental, this primordial truth, this fundamental reality to be transparent. I mean, nudity is the true expose. Free from the illusion of covering. Because aside from the utility of clothing, what is the purpose? Other than in caste or in vanity. And I don't mean to badmouth too bad, and I'm also not trying to, preach what's that movement? Nudism? I don't know. I'm not trying to preach to become a nudist. But anyway, this garland of human heads worn by Kali is 50. Coincidentally, 50 letters in the Sanskrit alphabet. This to symbolize the knowledge, the infinite knowledge of the primordial, of inevitability. The severance, the severed heads, the work of liberation from the cycles of karma. The white teeth showing the inner purity. The red tongue, the omnivorous nature. The enjoyment of the multifaceted flavors of experience. The sword, destroyer of false consciousness. So if the world is Maya, illusion, Kali is the thing that swipes the illusion away. Her 3 eyes representing the past, the present, and the future. Like the Morai. The name Kali means time. Kali is called Kali, time, because she devours it. So, time, Chronos, AnonK, that of which was before all else. The thing that swipes away illusion. The thing that is more powerful than anything else to compare. That of which is bare. So let's jump over again. Not a huge leap, but I haven't got to mention Tara in the course. And Tara can be very adequately tied to Kali. And most people are used to seeing Tara in Buddhism. And it's no secret that these two traditions have history, which it isn't my job to go over today. But Tara is probably one of the oldest goddesses that is still worshipped. One of. You could argue that the many different names for the same things, anyway. Tara has many names. She who carries across the ocean of samsara, the ocean of birth and rebirth, also playing in. She who created everything, the mistress of rain, the nurse of the world, literally the earth itself, and she who dwells in the trees. Tara, coming from the root of the name that it means to carry, and that's one interpretation. She is around, she helps to cross the tides of the stormy sea in the turmoils of life, the deliverer of the Savior, the deity of accomplishments, that of which guides one toward salvation. What is salvation? Salvation, awakening, realization, the wiping away of Maya. And Tara takes many forms, some of which inspire fearsomeness, terror, and others inspire benevolence and compassion, Double-sidedness here, people. Double-sidedness. So on one hand, described as gentle, young, compassionate, protective, helpful, unity, cooperation, destiny, peace, spirituality. Another interpretation of her name is to that of which is a star, the star goddess, the spark of life that encompasses time, that assists in helping us to understand the universe and the mysteries, giving us a glimpse of our destiny. And there's a lot to say about the mutuality between the stars and destiny. You see the astrological reference here, huh? So, what are these many forms? Green Tara, Mother Earth. White Tara, protector of long life. Red Tara, passionate, enchantment, magnetism, ego and desire. Orange Tara, liberator of spiritual prisoners. And that one goes heavy into, say, Gnosticism. Yellow Tara, that of which provides prosperity, intelligence. And Black Tara, wrathful, the one who wards off all forms of demonic evil. Retribution, the retributive goddess. So, the notes between Kali and Tara. 3. Red eyes. 4 hands holding swords. Garland of skulls. Snakes around, dancing on a corpse. Strong associations with death and dissolution. Strong associations with time and fate. The power of time, moving back to inevitability, associated with fire, the fires of the cremation ground, the fires of the cremation ground, death, people. So, it brings questions, which I did a session on death goddesses in the course, but for our own purposes. What's this with death? To wipe away the illusion. That is the nudity right there. To die is to go bare into it. You're gonna be washed away in the celestial sea just to see what's it all on about. And in the Orphic Mysteries, bless me with the memory that I may remember that life was to drink of Lethe, to forget. And to go back to death is to go back to the memory. Let's hop across the world. And I wanted to get back to this. The Taino people of the Caribbean. That the main goddess, Atabi, considered the supreme of all, is the mother god and the creator. She who gave birth to herself and birth to the rest. Goddess of music, beauty, fertility, is depicted in frog-like forms. A frog being a creature both very capable in the water and out of the water. But not so much to focus on her, because it would seem a lot of benevolence there. There is this other, I'm going to say Guabenke, but it's Guabancex, which there is some different names I've come across here. This is the goddess of the storms and destruction, accompanied by her messengers, thunder and wind. You see how we're getting more to the earth now. Together, all three of them would create the Jurakan, the Huracan, the hurricane. This destructive aspect of the hurricanes is a consequence of Guabenke's, or Guabenke, of her wrath, of her temper. Wild mother of the storms and volcanoes and earthquakes. And looking back into mythic history, you'd see that these events were thought of as a retribution, as these things that would go terribly wrong were because of the wrongness done by the people, that they would become victims to this because of things that were done, and of which is the retribution of the goddess. So this is the wrath of the gods through the conduit of the wild mother. Now, when I say that Huracan reference, there is also the god within Mayan mythology that bears that name, the god of wind and storm. But then comes the question or the investigative research of the chicken or the egg here. So we'll move on. We'll jump over to Africa. We'll jump back to the Yoruba, to Oya, the one of the most powerful of these goddesses, of the Orishas. And please, anybody, for my pronunciations being wrong, correct me. Goddess of thunder, lightning, tornadoes, hurricanes, rainstorms. A fire goddess coming with transformation. Now, what is immediately observable is the outer transformation of the landscape, that of which is changed by the power of nature. But there is also the power of the inner transformation. That too goes to the credit of Oya, guardian of the realm between life and death. Mutuality here? Associative with funerals and cemeteries, and communication with the spirits, and accordingly would have ties to ESP, extrasensory perceptions, clairvoyance, intuition, psychic phenomena, visions, rebirth. So the spirit of death. And she can call it, and she can hold it back. The spirit over death, or the power over death. And accordingly, Oya bears the knowledge of the magic arts, the great mother of the elders of the night. So association with witchcraft here. Both, again, both sides. That of which is protecting, and that of which is a warrior. The goddess who is supremely powerful, that will come down on injustice, dishonesty, and for those aligned will be of great benevolence. So this unpredictability is dependent on the character approaching, right? Because it could be benevolent, and it can be destructive. It really depends on the purpose thereof. So this, to call on the powers of Oya, is a tricky business. Because are you in the right standing for that? Or will you come to detriment of that? It makes me think of taking on a heavy ayahuasca experience, or a plant medicine experience, where it could go really great and it could go terribly bad. And that depends purely on who's approaching it. It's a very powerful thing, but who's the one approaching it and what is in the subconscious of that person. So, next, I want to talk about Pile. This is, and I think, I don't know if I'm saying that one right, but P-E-L-E. Goddess of fire, lightning, volcanoes. Madame Pile, Tutu, grandmother. The earth-eating woman, the creator of the Hawaiian Islands, emerging as a symbol of adaptability and the power of the indigenous people. The cycles, bringing land destruction, but also creating new land by the power of the volcano, making things anew. So again, you have both sides. You have bad fortune, as it would seem. And then you'd have good fortune, as it would seem. The protector. Jumping across again. Baba Yaga. What is Baba Yaga? We've discussed this plenty before too, but here's a story, right? Lady runs into Baba Yaga in the woods trying to find fire for her family, for her, I think it's her stepmother and her bad sisters. And Baba Yaga makes her do these impossible chores. But what Baba Yaga seems to not know is that this visitor has the ancestors with her, has the power of intuition that takes on the artifice of a doll. If I remember correctly, or if this isn't the only version of the story, and manages to miraculously complete all the tasks given by Baba Yaga. And so Baba Yaga gives over the fire. And what is the fire? The fire is the inner power, the true Dharma, the destiny, and the awakening. And so in this way, Baba Yaga is the teacher to the visitor. Baba Yaga, as I've mentioned before in the course, is the archetypal crone. The crone that lives in the woods, that is of old age, that is a quite dark figure, that knows all manner of magic, and that tests the initiation of those that come to her. The primal priestess. And not too far off from this would be Lilith. And that's a big turnaround, right? Because Lilith has quite the negative association coming from the Proto-Semitic Lilitu, meaning night, the female night being. And of course, this would be ham-fistedly tied to demons, those of which in the wind bring disease. Going all the way back to Sumer Lil, meaning air, simply Lady Air, goddess of the south wind and wife of Enlil. So quite the convoluted history, because we know what Lilith turns into. That of the demon that would steal children and would be the archetypal, what's the word? It's a sleep paralysis demon. Storm demon. Storm spirit. Associative with the wind. Bearer of death. Does this not sound in the same ballpark? Lilitu, the spirits of Lilitu. And not to mention too, Namu and Tiamat. Namu being this benevolent mother of ancient Sumeria, turning into the later Tiamat, which is this wrathful, irrational, destructive spirit, destructive force. Goddess, primordial goddess. So there's the flip again. There's the flip. Namu, mother protector. Tiamat, destructive force of Dharma. Look over again to Cerduwen of the Welsh. Cerduwen the crone. The goddess that has profound knowledge, has the cauldron of knowledge. Profound wisdom of the underworld, having two children, one that is fair and light, and the other, the son, who is dark, ugly, and evil. Again, a mother that is birthing something very good and something very bad, just like Nyx with birthing the day in the aether, but also birthing death. So, transformation is a big part of the legend of Cerdouen. Can transform into plants, can transform into animals, can transform other people into a great variety of things. And these stories of rebirth and transformation come in tow with Cerdouen's presence. And this magic cauldron could also be a reference to the well of Erd, the well of what of all wisdom at the base of Yggdrasil, at the base of the world tree. And again, that is who are there at the base of the world tree? The Fates are. Okay. So, and there's good reason to believe that the cauldron is the very inspiration for what Arthurian legend is seeking in the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail being the cauldron of Cerdouen. And Cerdouen is this crone figure, the nod to the triple goddess, Maiden Mother Crone, that the final manifestation of the sacred feminine is the crone that has come to compile the knowledge through life and beyond. Ooh. And quick list, right? Circe, daughter of Hecate. Hecate as well. Transformations. The wisdom of the underworld. Able to go back and forth. Circe in the Odyssey transforming Ulysses' men into pigs and transforming them back. You also have Medea. You have Persephone, Diana, Ereshkigal, Isis, Bast, Morrigan, Mebd. So across the board, and all these are goddesses that I'm not mentioning today, but you see these retributive aspects, the witchcraft, the knowledge of magical things simply being tied to the knowledge of that of which is beyond. Clairvoyance, if you look at the oracles of Delphi, what were they up to? They were women that were achieving clairvoyance through mystical means, through dreams or what have you. And so this wisdom of women in the sacred feminine and having this darker aspect is across the world, bearing different names. And so there could be, I hope it's apparent to see that no matter what tradition we're looking at, there is always the positive and the negative. And the negative has its purpose. The negative serves as a destructive aspect to keep people on the line of Dharma, or to keep people along the line of the Fates. And that this is a power beyond all powers. That this is the very necessity, the inevitability of the things, of the way that the world is manifesting itself continuously as it's unraveling. And that there's simply no other way that it's going to go, because these powers are here to keep it in line. So there's a lot to dissect, there's a lot to divulge in this discussion. Now, as a quick contrasting note, let's contrast the historicity of the witch burnings, of Christianity doing wrong by women, demoting this archetype in droves. So what is that on about? This fundamental misunderstanding to call these goddesses purely dark, to call this aspect purely dark and purely evil, is clearly a fundamental, naive, immature understanding of what is really in tow here. That it goes well beyond that. And so, without going on and on, I'm just gonna call it there.